It's a shock at first to find yourself amongst Polish people who are not demonstrating or queuing. Krakow's a seductively romantic place, with its medieval buildings, its gypsy fiddlers, and its sellers of peacock feathers.
Pani spogląda na oczka, pyta o piórecka. Więc najtańsze piórecko to jest piąteckie. Wtedy, gdy się pani uśmiecha. To jest mini piórecko.
But it's hard to work out what the people really feel. Their faces give nothing away. They walk about almost like dreamers who've decided they'd rather not wake up. The elegant pleasures which are left seem all the more delectable because there are so few of them. In the cafe Podbaranami, you can have ice cream or milkshake made with fresh berries, brought in buckets from the countryside. Coffee is rationed and has become a luxury to be consumed slowly and with reverence. The well-off ladies who used to come here every day to meet their friends come once a week now and drink 1 cup instead of 2. Krakow is an alluring mask. Behind it lies Poland's vast countryside, a countryside spattered with tiny, narrow-gauge railway lines. In our search for the other Poland, we chose to travel on 2 of them, one in the wild south, near the border with Czechoslovakia, and one in the north, near Warsaw, in what were once the Russian lands. Nasielsk Station, a shack, and some tracks on the flatlands of Mazovia, in a region so poor in the olden days that it said the nobles went as hungry as their peasants. And even now, it seems a bit optimistic to expect this battered, rusty little train, they call it a chukcha in these parts, to make it to the platform where its carriages wait. It's not that Nasielsk feels backward or impoverished now. It just seems to exist outside time, on the borders between somewhere and nowhere. A place where everything is about to happen, but never actually does.
Proszę do winnicy odstawić te wagony, z winnicy dobrać to 2 na 3 do półtusta.
Pan zwracał się do normalnej, żeby wstawiła winnickie wagony?
Nie. Dobra.
Jutro wolna sobota, więc należy...
Albo nagrywają pański, proszę pana, głos na taśmę.
Pacjent nie.
16:10 wobec kierowniku do skrzyżowania z pociągiem 19418.
It's here, in this sleepy little station, in the no-man's land between town and country, that we get our first real scent of the other Poland, the Poland that exiles remember through a nostalgic haze, the Poland that the inhabitants of tower blocks in Warsaw or Nowa Huta long for. The Poland you can only discover when you stop trying, relax, and let it find you.
wyższość tego interesu i kogoś.
Looking at these people's faces, you have to keep reminding yourself that they are living in a country in crisis, on the brink of disaster and ruin. But as some cruel wit has pointed out, Poland's present crisis has lasted 360 years so far, so they must be getting used to it. It was across these fields that Stalin's army marched to liberate Warsaw from the Germans. Well, perhaps liberate is not quite the right word. Drunk on vodka at 10 o'clock in the morning, these old soldiers are anxious to tell us how it really was.
Ja miałem żandarma jednego. Rozumie pan? On dawno by w piekło poszedł. Ja mówię, a on mówi tak, na ruski front nie pójdzie, tylko na amerykański. Tak. I będę żył, panie Kator. Ja u pana, a jak nie będę, to list napiszę. Nie ma i jego i listu nie ma. Gustaw. On na Hitlera to był zły. Weź. Tam przecież mularz taki Berlina chłopak. Fajny chłopak. Dla mnie to...
A ja się wam pisał 45 rok, bo 45 roku, jak ja byłem w wojsku. Ja służyłem w Gdańsku. Na 100 tysięcy Niemców, na wojska 2000. I dalej w Radzie są.
Jak to było, co?
100 tysięcy, 2000 wojska.
Niemców ginęły to pięściami, gdyby wstawić.
You'd expect old Polish soldiers to hate the Germans, but these two seem to remember some of them almost with affection. And you'd expect the Poles to complain bitterly of martial law, but they talk of it with dry, matter-of-fact resilience, which creates its own sour style of humor. It's the time of the curfew, and a man is going home one night on the train. It's 10 to 10. Two soldiers get into the carriage and see him. One takes out his gun and shoots him dead. "Why'd you do that?" asks the other. "Well," replies the first, "the train is running late, and he would never have made it home by 10 o'clock. Moving from Poland's troubled towns and cities into the countryside is like moving from purgatory into paradise. It's as if the little train were a time machine, transporting you back into a medieval Poland, where there is all the time in the world, where everything is done at a slow pace and by hand. Running water for this woman means the stream at the bottom of her garden. And there's no electricity or sanitation in her two-room cottage. She and her husband moved here from the city 4 years ago. And every summer, her children and her children's children come here to stay, to escape from their stuffy, cramped little flat in Warsaw. Here they can drink as much fresh milk as they like. It's difficult to get in the towns, eat vegetables from the garden, and gather wild raspberries in the woods. This family has fulfilled a classic Polish dream of retreating into inner exile in the countryside.
Piotr, weź podłóż nałogi. Drzewa.
Mama, tam są jeszcze borówki?
Self-sufficient and safe from price rises and food shortages, from queues and martial law. They've taken the private Polish road to freedom. If the Polish peasant has learned to scatter tin tacks on the road to collectivization, it's not out of laziness or bloody-mindedness, but because he prefers to break his back in his own field, for his own family. And if that means doing it early in the morning or in the evening, because he has a factory job during the day, then that's okay. And his train runs close to the earth too, on its wobbly track, at a pace a lively horse and cart can match, over wide open spaces which put no bit or bridle on the imagination, and stretch on and on as far as the eye can see, all the way, in fact, to Russia.
Tu Warszawa. Do końca roku pozostało jeszcze 154 dni.
Pultusk, the end of the line. It doesn't feel like a destination worthy of the train. It's difficult to imagine why anyone would want to come here unless they had to. A town that with money spent on it would be picturesque and charming, rots away for lack of it, lost and forgotten. It's uncannily quiet here. Even the children play quietly. There is a feeling of people hanging about, waiting for something to happen, but without much faith that anything will. It's ironic that the only sign of money being spent is in the reconstruction of this old castle as a holiday home for émigré Poles returning from abroad to bring business to their native land. The country needs their help, their dollars, so they at least must be properly looked after. While in Pultusk, They're finishing off a monument to the need for hard Western currency. The Warsaw skyline is dominated by the Palace of Science and Culture, a monument to the noble ideal of communism, built to inspire the Polish people after the ravages of the war. It was a fraternal gift from Russia and has become an immovable symbol of the Soviet presence in the land. But less than half a mile away, in Victory Square, there's another, much more fragile symbol, a cross of flowers and candles, built by the Poles as a monument to their own defiantly independent spirit. It was officially in memory of Cardinal Wyszynski, who preached here, but there were pictures of the Pope and Lech Wałęsa amongst the candles too, and copies of the new words of the national anthem, which put Wałęsa's name in place of the old heroes. On this, the eve of the Warsaw Uprising, thousands of people poured into the square and massed around the cross, singing, praying, weeping, remembering that foolhardy, heroic, hopeless battle to save their city, which was lost because somehow the Russian forces did not manage to get there in time to help them against the overwhelming German attack. By 11 o'clock, the square has been cleared and the city is deserted. Although the curfew has just been lifted, the habits created by suppression and fear die hard. The trams wheel the scattered protesters home to their high-rise flats in the suburbs, to Mokotów and Wola, to Praga and Żoliborz. But there are a few people still around in the city who've not yet learned to shut up and stay indoors in time of trouble.
Żono, jednak tyś najlepszą z żon. Już cię nie opuszczę, nie, już nie będę sam. Mówią Roxy, to nie wszystko, można bez niej żyć. Lecz nie wiedzą, co naprawdę, co w życiu samotnym być, co samotnym być. Piosenka dotyczy właśnie takiego życia, takiego naturalnego życia, wzgardy. Oczywiście jest to pewien protest przeciwko ludziom, którzy przeciwstawiają się nam, uważając nas jako brudasów, ludzi, którzy żyją pokątnie po jakichś stajniach, w ogóle w prymitywnych warunkach, i to jest pewien taki protest.
Śpiew przede wszystkim to jest to jedyna sprawa, która odłącza nas od tego życia. Nie patrzymy się na kolejki, że stoją, nie patrzymy się na smutnych ludzi. Musi być wesoło. To jest nasza dewiza. Żyć, być wesoło, a co później będzie, zobaczymy.
Jakoś sobie poradzimy. Żyjemy dobrze. Wydaje mi się, że jeszcze można sobie poradzić tutaj w Polsce, ażeby jakoś żyć. Mimo to, że jest fatalnie, ale nie jest aż tak źle, i mimo, że mamy jakieś kłopoty i że niekiedy nas trapią różni tacy ludzie, to jest dobrze i wydaje mi się, że nie potrzeba jest ucieczki na przykład na zachód. Takie jest moje zdanie skromne na to. Nie wiedzą ludzie, co w życiu samotnym być. Nie wiedzą, co samotnym być. Nie wiedzą ludzie, co w życiu samotnym być.
The deep south. A chill mist lifts from Cizna station in the Bieszczady mountains, just 2 miles from the Czech border. The last steam train running on the oldest narrow gauge track in Poland prepares to carry hikers and forestry workers deeper into the mountains. In winter, the snow makes the recently built roads impassable, and this frail little railway, with tracks so old it can't go faster than 20 miles an hour, is the only means of communication. There are strangely few signs of settlement along these tracks. But before the war, not only Polish Highlanders lived here, but people of Ukrainian origin, Lemkos and Boykos. After the war, the area became the battlefield on which the Ukrainian partisans made their last wild bid to win their independence. They lost. Their wooden houses and churches, whole villages along this track were burnt to the ground. Their inhabitants were deported to Russia or transported to Poland's newly acquired lands in the west. Whenever the Polish sense of nationhood is threatened, the people turn to the Catholic Church. Attendances at church have increased dramatically since the recent wave of troubles began.
Ten klasztor, ten kościół, bo ukochani bracia i siostry, oddanie się Bogu to jest ogromna potęga.
But although the sermon about the evils of abortion and irresponsible sex is passionate, the people's faces remain impassive. What does their religion mean to them? The Pope wondered about that when he was a young bishop celebrating Mass in a mountain village, just like this one. In their features, I see a field, even and white, upturned. Their temples a slope, their eyebrows a line below. The touch of my open hand senses the trust. In the map of their wrinkles, is there the will to fight? Shadow moves over their faces. An electric field vibrates. Perhaps what the Pope was trying to catch in his poem was that mixture of resignation and resistance you see in Polish faces. It masks the stubbornness of the peasant who won't be collectivized, of the Communist Party bureaucrat who brings his children up as pious Catholics. This outdoor Mass was a special one for the village saint's day. And outside the precincts of the church, just as in the Middle Ages, there's a fair. the people surge out of mass purged and purified to pore over tatty knickknacks. But for all the razzmatazz, it's a subdued kind of festival. When you look at the people streaming from the church, you see the faces of a nation that have gone into inner exile, whose real life is carried on in private, behind closed doors, underground. For years, the Bieszczady was kept desolate and empty. The Ukrainian houses which survived the burnings were transported to a neat outdoor museum. But now people are being allowed back to work and to settle, and it's become a holiday resort for the tougher sort of holidaymaker who enjoys plunging into trackless wastes. It's strange, but it seems that this little train carries only the young and the old. Nobody in between. These school children from Warsaw are singing a nonsense song they've made up about the rhythms of Africa. But amidst the nonsense, there's one verse which goes, "I see the soldiers in their Russian tanks. What are they doing here? I don't know. But I'm sure there's plenty more where they come from." But the Bieszczady has other invisible inhabitants. The internees tucked away in their camps not far from this line. The rebellious Cardinal Wyszynski was detained in a convent in these hills, and Lech Walesa was held here too, spending his days fishing aimlessly somewhere on the other side of the mountains. The name Lech comes from the same root as the word Lusatian, and some prehistorians think that the Lusatians were the true ancestors of the Polish people. It was they who built this wooden fortress 2,500 years ago. Inside the long huts they lived in their big family groups, all sleeping in one high bed, with the animals cramped in beneath at night for warmth. It was fortified with breakwaters and ramparts, and a lookout post. And, best of all, it was on an island. The terrifying vulnerability of their land has always made the Poles turn inwards, towards each other. The family becomes a fortress. However, this food is being prepared not for a siege, but for a wedding. And what a wedding! It will go on all day, all night, and probably over the next 2 nights as well.
Tak mi dopomóż, Panie Boże Wszechmogący,
Tak mi dopomóż, Panie Boże Wszechmogący,
Trójcy Jedyny
Trójcy Jedyny
i wszyscy święci.
wszyscy święci.
Ja, Wanda, biorę Ciebie, Eugeniuszu, za męża. I ślubuję Ci...
The service is held in a wooden church, 500 years old, miraculously preserved during the Troubles. The bride's mother has been recently widowed, so the groom's father is paying for the festivities, and Marina and Milosz will live in his house until they can find a place of their own. These country people still live in close-knit, extended families. They tend not to marry outsiders. Marina comes from the next village, and that's considered to be quite far enough away.
Za prawdy godne to i sprawiedliwe, słuszne i zbawienne.
It's difficult to believe that the deep troubles of the towns and cities are going to touch these young people's lives at all. Their village is like an island, living in a safe, idyllic past, while the storms of modern Poland rage round it. The first toast of the night to the bride and groom, drunk in throat-singeing homemade vodka. But for the bride, one glass is not enough to calm the nerves and get the party going. The supplies of vodka seem inexhaustible, and new plates of food arrive on the tables every hour or so. But where does it all come from in this country of scarcity and shortages? Well, it turns out that the groom's father is a market gardener. And that's his second job, of course. And then there's the cousin who works in a big hotel. There are always foreigners there who want to change money on the black market. And with dollars in Poland, you can buy almost anything you want. You can't be at a Polish village wedding without thinking of the most famous Polish play of all, Call the Wedding, by the poet-prophet Wyspiański. In the play, as midnight strikes, the drunken guests are visited by phantoms, symbolizing the dreams of Poland past and future. There is a feeling that something tremendous and extraordinary is going to happen. Maybe even the miraculous recovery of the country's independence. At dawn, a magic horn is to be sounded to rouse the people to rise up and save Poland. But things go wrong. The summons is ignored. The revelers dance on like puppets to the sweet, benumbing music. The Poles are a melancholic, but not a despairing nation. In the play, Poland was not saved. And when the bride asks the groom where this mystical Poland he's always talking about is, he replies that it's to be found nowhere in the world, unless perhaps in the human heart. Almost anywhere else you could write that off as romantic escapism. But in Poland, today, it rings true.
wysyłam 2 klubu.